What is the New Covenant? Christians are taught and believe they are under a new covenant that came into effect when God sent his Son to be the Messiah and their Savior and die for their sins. They prove this new covenant with Jeremiah 31:31 and Hebrews 8:6-13. Jeremiah 31:31. Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will cut a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. And Hebrews 8:13. In that he says, a renewed covenant, he has made the first old. Now that which decays and waxes old is ready to vanish away. You'll notice in the above verses the word renewed was used instead of the word new. This is the case in some versions of the scriptures. New and renewed. Strong's H2319. Chadash. New. From H2318. To renew, repair, restore. From the definitions above, it seems more appropriate to use the word renewed as opposed to new, in that there is already a covenant. To use the word new would seem to imply that the old covenant would cease to exist. We saw in Hebrews 8:13 above, old is ready to vanish away. Did Yahweh ever say his covenant would vanish away? It's everlasting. How long is that? Yahweh has made covenants with different people. He made a covenant with Noah and his seed that he wouldn't destroy the earth with a flood ever again. The sign of that covenant is the rainbow, which we still have today, as this covenant is in effect for perpetual generations. He made a covenant with Abraham and his seed that he would multiply Abraham's seed, and Abraham would be a father of many nations. The sign of that covenant is circumcision, and it is an everlasting covenant. He established a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to give them the land of Canaan. He made a covenant with the house of Jacob, the children of Israel. This is the covenant we will look at. It's known as the Mosaic covenant, though it was not made with just Moses. It was made with Israel. Moses acted as Yahweh's spokesperson to the people. Exodus 31:16 and 17 tells us that guarding the Sabbath is a sign, mark, of the covenant forever between Yahweh and the children of Israel, throughout the generations as a perpetual covenant. Deuteronomy 7:9. Know therefore that Yahweh Eloheka, he is Elohim, the faithful El, which guards his covenant and mercy with them that love him and guard his commandments to 1,000 generations. This tells us that Yahweh guards his covenant with the ones who keep his commandments. All these covenants are everlasting, forever. What does it mean, Israel? Yahweh said in Exodus 19:5-6, Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and guard my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, and a holy nation. Peculiar treasure. Strong's H54:59. Segulah. Possession, valued property, special. In the above verses, Yahweh was speaking to the people of Israel, but there were other people who came out of Egypt with them and were among them. Some say that Israel only refers to bloodline, but Yahweh says, Exodus 12:49, One Torah shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourns among you. Leviticus 19:34, But the stranger that dwells with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh Elohim. It is mentioned many more times in Torah that there is only one Torah for the homeborn and for the stranger or foreigner that sojourns with them. As we saw in Exodus 19:5-6, it is not bloodline that makes you a peculiar people. It's those who guard the covenant by keeping the commandments. So does that mean you have to be in the land of Israel to be able to follow Torah? No. Israel is a people, not a piece of land. Yahweh scattered Israel, first the northern kingdom, then the southern. Many of the tribes lost their identity in the dispersion, even calling themselves Gentiles. But bloodline or location doesn't matter. You are his chosen people, if you guard his commandments, whether you are from the tribes or you are a stranger, as mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 6 and 9. If you are of the tribes, but do not follow Torah, you are not a peculiar treasure. You are not special. If you are not of the tribes, but do follow Torah, you are a peculiar treasure. You are special. I'm not trying to implement replacement theology here. The church does not replace Israel. The condition is whether or not you follow Torah. So let's go ahead and take a look at Jeremiah, the end of chapter 30 and verses in chapter 31, and see if the covenant is a new or renewed covenant, and if that has already been implemented, or when it will be. I'm not going to read every verse in the chapters just for the sake of time. You can go ahead and read these chapters for yourself. I want to start with a few verses from chapter 30, just to set the timeline for the first verse of chapter 31. Jeremiah chapter 30. Chapter 30 addresses Israel and Judah and the time of Jacob's trouble and what will happen during that time. I'm going to start with verse 22, just to set the timing for chapter 31. 22. And ye shall be my people, and I will be your Elohim. 23. Behold, the whirlwind of Yahweh goes forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. 24. The fierce anger of Yahweh shall not return, until he has done it, and until he has performed the intents of his heart. In the latter days ye shall consider it. Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 1. At the same time, says Yahweh, will I be the Elohim of all the families of Israel, and they shall be my people. At the same time. What time? Chapter 30, verse 24. In the latter days. 7. For thus says Yahweh, sing with gladness for Jacob, and shout among the chief of the nations. Publish ye, praise ye, and say, O Yahweh, save your people, the remnant of Israel. Save your people. Who is his people? The remnant of Israel, the peculiar ones who keep his commandments. 10. Hear the word of Yahweh, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, He that scattered Israel will gather him, and guard him, as a shepherd his flock. He scattered Israel, and he will gather us back. Where will we be gathered to? Verse 12 tells us, back to Zion. 12. Therefore they shall come and sing in the height of Zion, and shall flow together to the goodness of Yahweh, for wheat, and for wine, and for oil, and for the young of the flock and of the herd. And their soul shall be as a watered garden, and they shall not sorrow any more at all. Have all the tribes been gathered back to Zion? No. Is there still sorrow in the world? Yes. 16. Thus says Yahweh, refrain your voice from weeping, and your eyes from tears, for your work shall be rewarded, says Yahweh, and they shall come again from the land of the enemy. We will be gathered from the land of the enemy where we were scattered. Has that happened yet? No. 31. Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will cut a renewed covenant with the house of Israel, and with the house of Judah. Who does he make the covenant with? His people, Israel and Judah. Bloodline? No. All who keep his commandments, whether they are bloodline or stranger. It is a renewed covenant, because Yahweh does not change. Malachi, chapter 3, verse 6a. For I am Yahweh, I change not. But, verse 32 tells us, it's not according to the covenant made with their fathers. So how is it different? 32. Not according to the covenant that I cut with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they broke, although I was a husband unto them, says Yahweh. Notice Israel broke the covenant, not Yahweh. Him being a husband to them means he provided for them and protected them. When he made the covenant with them, he laid out blessings and cursings. If you choose to stay in covenant and keep his commandments, you receive the blessings. If not, you get the cursings. 33. But this shall be the covenant that I will cut with the house of Israel. After those days, says Yahweh, I will put my Torah in their inward parts, and write it in their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Notice first of all it says, after those days. What days? The days we read about in chapter 30, and after the time of Jacob's trouble, and after the gathering back. He goes on to tell us what is different. This time Torah will be written on our hearts. Obviously, this doesn't mean literally. It is a figure of speech, meaning that it will be our heart's desire to follow Torah, follow the commandments and instructions we are given. Christians will say it is written on their hearts today, even though a very large portion of Christianity teaches that the law, Torah, was done away with, fulfilled, abolished, nailed to the cross, that they don't have to follow it. How can it be already written on their hearts and done away with at the same time? How can it be written on their hearts, yet they have no desire to follow it? How is that possible? Also, we haven't been gathered back yet, so the covenant hasn't been renewed yet. Nothing has changed. Yahweh hasn't changed. The covenant hasn't changed. It's still in effect. Yahweh's word hasn't changed. And the renewed covenant will not happen until we are gathered back in the latter days. 34. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh. For they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, says Yahweh. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. Has this happened yet? Do you still have to tell people about Yahweh? Yes. Does everyone know him and follow him? No. 35. Thus says Yahweh, which gives the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divides the sea when the waves thereof roar. Yahweh Tzebaoth is his name. 36. If those ordinances depart from before me, says Yahweh, then the seed of Israel shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. 37. Thus says Yahweh, if heaven above can be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, says Yahweh. As long as the ordinances Yahweh put in place remain, Israel will be his people. Are you Israel? Do you keep the commandments? We saw that the covenant Yahweh made with Israel is an everlasting covenant. It doesn't have an end date. It's forever. He didn't say, it's in effect until I send my son. It's in effect today. Nothing has changed. When the covenant is renewed, it will be renewed with Israel, bloodline or not. It's those who keep the commandments. A new covenant has not been and will not be made with Gentiles. The covenant will be renewed with Israel after we are gathered back. You are a part of Israel if you keep the commandments. The church is telling you that there's a new covenant now. They are telling you that in the new covenant you don't have to keep Yahweh's commandments, which means you're not in covenant with Yahweh. Has any of this happened? Have we been gathered back? No. Is Torah written on everyone's heart? No. Do you have to tell the people about Yahweh? Yes. Are you going to trust your salvation to the hireling in the pulpit? Or are you going to believe what Yahweh says?